John Stephen Gygax. Now, we touched upon Gygax in the previous episode, although that was focused mostly on Helgoth and other suspects in the Pew Crew theory, which may or may not also include John Stephen Gygax, and we will be taking a look at Gygax and all things connected to Gygax and other parties not discussed anywhere else in this case, in the mainstream media at least, in what is the most comprehensive Jonbenet Ramsey podcast series, MINDSHOCK. So let's break this down first from acandyrose.com, which is a very, very in-depth website referring to all available evidence in the Jonbenet Ramsey case. Speculate about the viability of suspects. Who killed the pageant queen, the prime suspect, shown in the UK on Real Crime ITV 1 on June 15, 2004. This was produced by Michael Tracy and co-produced with David Mills. Suspects targeted by Michael Tracy in his documentaries: Michael Helgoth and John Stephen Gygax. Targeted as Helgoth's partner in crime and then Helgoth's killer. Of course, the suicide by many considered staged. Michael Helgoth's DNA doesn't match. And again, these are all old articles, old write-ups, old documentaries. The latest DNA technology has not been used to rule out any suspects. Now, obviously, one or two generation old DNA tech is not going to be as accurate as modern tech. Now, that still doesn't mean the most modern technology is accurate. Supposedly, there's only enough of a sample to test one more time. Now, in 2022, I don't know why they can't duplicate the sample somehow in order to be able to have something to test later as well. But that's law enforcement for you. So just continuing on here, it says the DNA doesn't match, but again, that's not 100% certain with such a degraded sample. John Gygax contacted the Boulder DA's office when he discovered Michael Tracy was targeting him. He provided documentation that he wasn't in Boulder on December 25th, 1996. Michael Tracy is quoted in Rocky Mountain News, September 2nd, 2006, as, quote, "Nor did he do what he has criticized the media for over the years, speculate about the viability of suspects," end quote. What? Both Michael Helgoth and John Stephen Gygax are presumed innocent, just as John Mark Carr was presumed innocent. And for Michael Tracy to continue to feature these men on his prime suspects, whether in his own documentaries or in court TV specials he co-produces, or the selling of sections of his show to other networks, whether here in the USA or abroad, is proving he is nothing more than a hypocrite and doing the exact same thing that he's claiming he is fighting against: media trial in the court of public opinion. In a legal deposition in the Wolf vs. Ramsey civil suit dated December 11, 2001, Patsy Ramsey stated on page 158, quote, "I mean, we are not afraid to face even our most vile opponent, of which I consider the National Enquirer to be one of the most vile," end quote. Michael Tracy appeared on Catherine Cryer Live, Court TV, June 24, 2004, and validates using Michael Helgoth and then covertly using John Gygax as the prime suspect in his documentary from a story published in the National Enquirer that Helgoth had a stun gun and owned high-tech boots, shown in the segment. Tracy praises the National Enquirer for running the story, while at the same time his documentaries are peppered with criticism on tabloid articles, including those in the National Enquirer for attacking the Ramsey. I mean, you could approve of some things an entity does and not other things. I mean, I don't know how hypocritical that is, but... So let's get even more in depth. On the Jonbenet subreddit, just 5 months or so ago, in 2022, Hope Troll posted this regarding John Stephen Gygax, referencing Geraldo at-large interview of John Stephen Gygax and observations here. It is a transcript, so some of the issues could be due to transcription errors. 1. Gygax says he has receipts from a Sears to prove he was in Indiana at the time of Jonbenet's killing, But as far as I know, the Indiana Sears wasn't open on Christmas Day in 1996. Also, since he has roommates, wouldn't it make more sense to say my roommates can vouch for me that I was living in Indiana at the time? 2. He says he lived in Boulder for 15 years until he moved to Indiana in September, October of 96. 3. He also says that he heard about the killing of Jonbenet in September, October of 96. Although incorrect, indicates he moved to Indiana at the same time as Jonbenet's killing. Or at the same time that he thought it was. So he doesn't even know the months here. 4. If he were innocent, why wouldn't he take a DNA test and then sue the documentarian Michael Tracy? I realize he might not want to be implicated in a separate crime, which is why he wouldn't give DNA. That's an interesting point there, especially if he's a known criminal. 5. Lastly, he did automotive restoration work, which might explain why he might have black specialty duct tape on hand. SureTape sells a black duct tape designed to be used on cars. And we don't need to go down the SureTape rabbit holes here, but apparently it was manufactured. To be able to get it, there's questions on how quickly one can get it if it was manufactured so close to the date, and it would have to have been shipped, etc., etc. You can look at our previous podcast regarding the SureTape and Susan Bennett and all of the coincidences in that direction. 6. He has trailers and he caravans. A good reason to own olefin utility cord. One of the uses for that cord was for tents. Due to caravanning, he probably is familiar with the knots used for camping. 7. He claims Michael Helgoth was just a work friend, but check out his response when asked about what happened to Michael. So he's asked what happened to Michael. Gygax says this, quote, well, when I was back, after I moved back there in Indiana in September or October, I don't have the exact date. I know it was toward the end of September or the beginning of October 96. I was living my life, and of course I saw the news release of the Jonbenet murder in Boulder. I was in Bloomington, Indiana, in a home that I was renting with 2 other roommates. We were sitting there watching TV that evening when it broke, and one of my who's Richard Hill, who is from Boulder, I'm assuming that one of my roommates, who's Richard Hill, who is from Boulder, he came back with me to Indiana from Boulder, who helped me drive some of the vehicles. I had a big rental truck pulling the trailer, the Jeep, and my 55 Chevy pickup truck pulling a trailer. So he drove the pickup truck, and we caravanned out here together. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. So that's his answer when asked what happened to Michael. Okay, the commentary here continues. I realize he might have just been nervous, but this seems like an easy yes, I heard about that. It is very sad. He's a nice guy. He didn't say it better later, as shown below. He's asked, the end of Michael Helgoth's life, because this is important here. Gygax says, quote, Michael, according to what I've been told, committed suicide on February 14th, 97. Okay, point 7, a Dirty Harry reference. He's asked, now I want to tell people how the true investigators find out that this man being named by actually I want to make it so your story, there's a frame where they hold up what they claim to be a police report, correct? Gygax responds, quote, yes, it was a menacing with a deadly weapon charge that I just spoke about earlier in the show where a fight broke out in my mobile home and my roommate was being injured and I interviewed and got a little bit, I'm assuming that should be intervened, and I got a little bit carried away and pinpricked a guy in his chest with a knife, and he reached his hand up and grabbed the knife blade, and when I pulled it back, he cut his hand, but I was just trying to get him out the door away from my roommate so I can tend to my roommate, who ended up actually having an amputated finger from the incident from the guy I was trying to protect him from. If you were to get a hold of the courtroom transcripts, the prosecutor spoke to the judge on my behalf, actually more so than my own lawyer had to talk. He told the judge that I was so close to making my day thing that I probably shouldn't be even in the courtroom. But because we were all drunk, it was New Year's Eve night. Basically, one person's testimony cancels out another, so all were inadmissible. So basically, it was my word against the injured party's word, and that was it. Point 8. Lastly, although he has an aw-shuckish vernacular, he can be quite elegant and targeted when he wants to be. This might have been written for him, though. Quote, I would just like to say I'd like to see Michael Tracy held accountable for what he's done to me and others. Also, Michael Tracy is a journalism professor at the Colorado University, which is one of our nation's most respected universities, and I just think that the CU faculty, students, alumni, and those donating money in grants to the Colorado University really want their university to be associated with the professor that works this way. Or don't want to? Do the parents of students attending CU for journalism degrees really want a man like Michael Tracy teaching their children? I ask anyone hearing this show to think what this would do to your life. Imagine having your family, friends, coworkers having to live this nightmare. Then understand that next week it could be you in Michael Tracy's sights. This man needs to be stopped before he ruins another life. I'm asking the public for help. If this upsets you, please write to Colorado University Board of Regents and voice your opinion to them. I would like to see Michael Tracy removed from his teaching position at Colorado University and issue a public apology for his wrongful accusations leveled against myself and others. This man has no business teaching in a university, period, and that's just what I wanted to say, end quote. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting shift. That's an interesting shift in dialogue. So in September, October 96, Gygax had just served 90 days for the felony of menacing with a deadly weapon. And then he moves to Indiana allegedly right after. But he also doesn't seem to have a good memory because he claims he heard about Jonbenet Ramsey's death in September, October 96. 43 Holding responded with this: Gygax is not named in the clip of the documentary Who Killed the Pageant Queen, other than to state that he was Helgoth's associate. In this, it mentions that he may have worked in the Ramsey home before they moved in. Unidentified animal hairs were found in the basement near Jonbenet's body. Helgoth's associate, aka Gygax, raised wolf dogs whose hair matched those colors. Edited to add that there are some errors in the clip, one of which they state the age of the Boulder girl referred to as Amy as being 12 years old and others she was 14, is the comment about Patsy's health insurance towards the end.
These detectives did not see Helgoth as the actual killer. In fact, DNA samples taken at a post-mortem show that he was not. But they think he may have been involved. One reason is that they've always believed it likely that more than one person was in the Ramsey home that night. The footprints suggest this, as do the number of objects taken in and out of the house. These include a rope, stun gun, cord, and duct tape. It would have been difficult for just one person to have done everything that was done that night. And the ransom note also suggests that more than one person was involved. It says, "We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction." It warns about the two gentlemen watching over your daughter. Throughout, it refers to the kidnappers in the plural. The new team of detectives think Helgoth may well have been involved as an accomplice of an even more deadly killer. One who later murdered him to stop him talking after Alex Hunter's unnerving press conference. In trying to identify a potential killer, they came up with an important clue. In the months before the murder, up to a dozen homes near the Ramseys were broken into at night. There was a curious pattern to these burglaries. Little or nothing was taken. Detectives believe they were carried out simply for the thrill of stalking others at night. The break-ins stopped abruptly after the murder. The Boulder police did not link them to the murder, but the new investigators believe they might be the key to everything. Because Helgoth, too, used to stalk people at night. It happened to John Kennedy.
I was working on a car late one evening in my garage. I kind of get the feeling there's something out there, and went right up to the window to look. I looked and it was real quiet. I don't see anything. I looked again, and all I could see were a pair of eyes coming out of the black. I don't know why I figured, well, this could be Michael. So I said, "Is that you, Mike?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, how long you been out there?" And he goes, "Long enough." And he's gone. I thought it was kind of strange.
Helguth used to stalk people at night, dressed in black ninja clothing. When looking for his possible killer, detectives looked for a violent associate who shared his interest in martial arts and young girls. They immediately came up with one, a close associate who has since disappeared, a man who frightens those around him.
I tried to steer clear of that individual because he could have been, a menace to me or my family.
Were you personally scared of him?
On a level, I'd have to say yes. Absolutely. I think he was capable of being violent towards anybody.
Threatened to cut one of his girlfriend's ears off. His ex-wife, he tried to kill her. They were only married probably 5-6 days.
Helguth's associate lived in this trailer park near the car salvage yard. The makers of this program know his name, but have decided to withhold it because he has not been charged with any offense. But the more that has been discovered about him, the more he fits the profile of a stalker and a killer.
He was very methodical. He wanted everything down to the last detail. He didn't want anybody else to have any control. If he didn't feel like he was controlling a situation, he would lash out.
Martial arts, he liked those throwing knives, he was into ninja, he was into dark clothing. He always wore a black t-shirt, black pants, black boots.
Helguth's associate was convicted following a stabbing here on the trailer park. Witnesses were too frightened to give evidence, but court documents summarized his criminal record as violence, history of sexual assault. They also revealed that he was a convicted pedophile. He was imprisoned in the 1980s for a sexual assault on a child. It is believed that he may have worked in the Ramsey home shortly before the family moved in. Unidentified animal hairs were found in the cellar where Jonbenet's body was left. The hairs were of two colors. Helguth's associate raised wolf dogs whose hairs exactly match those colors. Helguth had bought 2 of these dogs.
If Michael Helguth and this one associate that we identified were actually involved in the burglaries, they could have easily been involved in the murder also. There was just too many associated items that could tie him to it. That means that he has to be eliminated. We need DNA from him, wherever he might be.
These investigators see the associate as their prime suspect in the Ramsey case. Tracking him down, they say, is a priority. The need to do so made more urgent by revelations about another horrific crime the Ramsey killer may have committed. Seven years after the murder of Jonbenet Ramsey, a prime suspect has been identified for the killing. He's been identified by new investigators, who have also uncovered disturbing facts about another crime he may have committed. It occurred in an affluent area of Boulder, near the Ramsey home, just 9 months after the killing of Jonbenet. A mother and her 12-year-old daughter returned to their home here after a visit to the cinema. The girl attended the same dance studio in Boulder as Jonbenet. The Dance West studio is now derelict and about to be pulled down. But detectives think the fact that the girl danced here might explain what happened that night. Her father was away on business. When the girl and her mother returned home, they were alone. They are still too upset to talk publicly about what happened next. There was an intruder in their home. The father is anxious to protect the family's identity.
My feeling is he got into the house while they were out and hid inside the house.
After turning on the burglar alarm, the mother went to bed. Sometime later, the intruder crept into the girl's bedroom. He put his hand over her mouth. He used her name and told her he knew her. He began a sexual assault and a possible abduction. But the mother close by was a light sleeper.
My wife heard whispering. She got up, asked if everything was okay. She got a non-committal reply. Thought that there might be someone moving around. She took a can of mace and walked into the other bedroom. And that's when she saw a man there. He ran past her and ran out a bedroom window where he had to jump off the roof.
It was what he was wearing, though, which has intrigued detectives.
He was dressed completely in black from head to foot, like a ninja.
His mask was pulled up. But detectives say the black clothing strengthens their belief that this case may be linked to the Ramsey murder.
And what we found is that there were a lot of similarities between the Dance West case and the Ramsey case. So we have a little girl who was in her room right next to her mom and dad. There was an alarm system that was not activated. Somebody entered the home. Somebody assaulted this little girl and then left.
I suggested multiple times that the case seemed very similar to the Ramsey case. When I told the police detectives about this, they said, no, this has no similarity at all.
Frustrated by the attitude of the Boulder police, the parents hired a private detective. He uncovered the same pattern of late-night break-ins that have now caught the attention of detectives investigating the Ramsey murder.
We learned about a series of intrusions and attempted assaults where someone would come home and find someone in their bedroom in the middle of the night, or someone appeared in someone's bedroom in the middle of the night. To me, it's so similar that you'd have to think there's a very good chance that it was the same person. Or it may just be that there's a number of lowlives running around. Whether they know each other or not, who knows? The similarities are pretty compelling, though, and it seems to me if you were the police, you'd at least be curious about it, rather than not wanting to hear about it.
They would just enter the home in a ninja costume.
All dressed in black.
The detectives now hunting Jonbenet's killer are shocked that the lead was ignored.
The fact that Boulder PD ignored information was just absolutely ludicrous. Why are you not taking this information and seeing if it was related to the Ramsey case? You have an obligation as a law enforcement agency to take these facts and either eliminate it or say, guess what? It is part of the Ramsey homicide.
While dismissing any link to the Ramsey case, the Boulder police dismayed the parents by questioning their daughter's school friends. In the process, revealing what had happened to her, something she wanted kept secret.
If I had to rate the police performance in this case on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate it a -10. Because it was not only incompetent and dishonest in that they would tell us they were doing things that they didn't do. Not only that, but it caused additional harm to a victim.
In the Dance West case, the victim alerts mom and is able to get up and leave.
These detectives believe, had the mother not awoken and disturbed the intruder, it could have gone badly for her too. The parents are only too aware of this.
The possibility that it could have turned out the same way is pretty obvious, and then you'd have the police saying, well, it's clear that the parent must have done it. because nobody else could get in there. But for my wife being a light sleeper, we might be in the newspapers now, as well as the Ramseys.